Bhavanan, purifying. Grihamedhinam, for householders. Tam, him. Eva, indeed. Sarva, in all. Geheshu, the palaces. Santam, present. Ekam, in one form. Tadarshaha, he saw. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Shukadeva Goswami said, thus, in every palace, Narada saw the Lord in His same personal form, executing the transcendental principles of religion that purify those engaged in household affairs. Purport. In this verse, Shukadeva Goswami repeats what the Lord has Himself explained. As Srila Prabhupada writes in Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead was engaged in His so-called household affairs in order to teach people how one can sanctify one's household life, although he may be attached to the imprisonment of material existence. Actually, one is obliged to continue the term of material existence because of household life. But the Lord, being very kind upon householders, demonstrated the path of sanctifying ordinary household life, because Krishna is the center of all activities. A Krishna-conscious householder's life is transcendental to Vedic injunctions and is automatically sanctified. As stated in the text 2 of this chapter, all the Lord's activities in the many palaces were performed by the Lord's single spiritual form, Ekena Vapurusha, which manifested in many places at once. This vision was revealed to Narada because his desire to see it and the Lord's desire to show it to him. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti points that the other residents of Dwarka could see Krishna only in the particular part of the city they themselves occupied, and not anywhere else, even if they would sometimes go to another precinct of some business. Thus the Lord gave a special view of His pastimes to His beloved devotee Narada Muni. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyanjana Shalakya Chakshunlitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swam Rupakara Mayam Dadati Svaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shuddhapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajata Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurani Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Shri Shukha Uvacha Ityacharantam Saddharman Bhavanan Grihamedhinam Tameva Sarvageheshu Santamekam Dadarshaha. Shukadeva Goswami said, thus in every palace Narada saw the Lord in His same personal form, executing the transcendental principles of religion that purify those engaged in household affairs. In the second part of the purport, Srila Prabhupada points out how this vision of Narada Muni seeing Krishna in so many different places, performing so many different kinds of activities, was very unique, and it was not available to other residents of Dwarka. So Narada Muni received, we may say, some kind of a special mercy But again, this special mercy of Krishna refers to a particular relationship that he has with his other devotees. Just like we know, to the residents of Vrindavan, Krishna would try to conceal the potency that he has, because that would disturb their relationship. Particularly, let's say, parental relationship, which he had with Mother Yashoda when he showed once her the universal form when she looked into his mouth. So that was very bewildering to her, because she couldn't conceive Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For her, Krishna was only her little son. So sometimes Krishna would do this. He would exhibit this kind of amazing, unnatural, so to say, different kinds of forms that he has or activities that he performs. But in essence, he wouldn't do that, only for a particular cause, for a particular reason. And in general, again, Krishna is not inclined to perform such kind of feats or activities because they disturb the relationship. In spiritual life, everything is based on a relationship. Spiritual life is a relationship. Through relationship, we perform different kinds of exchanges. We express our love towards Krishna. So when this becomes somewhat influenced by something that it's not that we are used to, then it becomes a disturbance to that particular relationship. Just like we know, Arjuna in Bhagavad-gita, he was requesting Krishna to show him the universal form, because he wanted to see something unique, something wonderful, something amazing, something different. And by Krishna's kindness, he was able to do so. But then Arjuna was perturbed. He was so disturbed, he was almost practically fearful of this amazing universal form. So then Krishna, on his request, withdrew it, and then he showed him four-armed and then two-armed form, which Arjuna again requested, because he couldn't relate to that universal form. There was nothing so attractive to him about this universal form. Of course, that universal form has its purpose, mainly for us to establish Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But there was no need for Arjuna to do so. He already knew so. He already, in the 10th chapter, we know earlier, he addresses Krishna, Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram Idam Uttamam. He addresses Krishna, you're the Supreme, you're Parabrahman, you're the Absolute. No? So this kind of different forms Krishna exhibits to the devotees, mostly to fortify their relationship towards him in some different way, for different reasons. Just like we know, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would also sometimes exhibit different forms. In Chaitanya Charitamrita we hear he would manifest different forms than the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sometimes Lord Varaha, sometimes Nrsimhadev, sometimes Lord Shiva, sometimes at least the mood. So sometimes he would exhibit those when he would come across certain devotee who could relate to those forms. You know? So here Narada Muni, he's unique in that sense. He's perceiving Krishna in so many different forms, performing various kinds of different activities. And he's amused by this. He says, how wonderful my Lord is. We know that Narada Muni is in a different bhav, it's in the mood mostly of Vaikuntha. And this kind of exhibition of the Lord in so many various forms, this is definitely something that it's very appealing to him, it's very amazing to him. And this is something that he is appreciating. Whereas the other residents of Dwarka, as we heard here, they were only conscious there is only one Krishna. There are no many Krishnas. There is only one Krishna. That's like sometimes gopis when they dance in Rasa Lila, every one of them thinks Krishna is with me. Just like sometimes even in Ratha Yatra, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would be dancing. Each party would be thinking he's only with us. But he wasn't. He was manifested in so many other places. So gopis would also think like this. Krishna is only with us. Maybe, hopefully, sometimes, well, yes, we are expecting that. In the spiritual world, when we go, we will think Krishna is only with us. And that's fine. But he wouldn't be only with us. He's with so many others. It's with so many others. And there are so many different realms in Golok Vrindavan, and where Krishna is manifested. But the idea is that personal notion, Krishna is with us. Just like now in this world, Krishna is also with us. Right now, as a Paramatma within our hearts, He's manifested in so many, and He's reciprocating in so many different ways. It's not just same, it's not like we know the yogi, like we know the Kardama Muni could manifest in 9 different forms, but he couldn't perform different activities. But Krishna can do this. This is big difference between any yogi, any ordinary living being, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Krishna is unique in that sense, and He performs all these various kinds of activities. And Narada Muni is amused. He's saying, wow, Krishna is so great. You know, He's doing this here, He's doing that there. We heard of some of those activities earlier. And this is the wonderful picture of the Lord. Of course, now we have been discussing a little bit how is that possible for Krishna. In Dwarka, He is so regulated. We will hear in the next chapter Krishna rising early in the morning, performing different kinds of activities that He has to perform, as again what the subject of this verse is, performing household activities, performing activities of a king, so many duties that he has, and he's quite regulated, and everybody perceives him in one particular way, doing particular things. But it seems when he is in a private setting, then with those that he relates, then he manifests different kinds of activities. Same form, same Krishna, but it's very unique, it's very personal. Then at those times, he's just performing various different kinds of activities and relates to whoever is within that palace. Yeah, whichever queen, whoever is there. So this is something unique that Krishna performs, and this is why, again, Krishna is Krishna. So this is what Narada Muni was blessed to see, how Krishna is acting in so many different ways in various places at once. There was one interesting commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He says that in case of gopis dancing the Ras Lila and Krishna with them, that sometimes Krishna is so fast that he's just like a firebrand. So it's one Krishna, but he's moving very fast. That's also something that's almost inconceivable to us. How can Krishna be, in so many places at once? So just like, if you would have some rod, fiery rod, right? When you move this, right, it looks like a circle, right? It's one rod, right? But if you keep on moving it, and the faster it goes, you would think it's a circle. So Krishna like this, running around or manifesting, being present in a circle. So that's another option. That's another way Krishna could exhibit to be with all the gopis simultaneously, being very fast, extremely fast. We can't even conceive how is that possible. But everything is possible for Krishna. So here the main subject of this verse is Krishna acting in such a way that he would enlighten the household activities, or those who are in the household life. He would present what are the perfect duties of a household ashram. I said here, Krishna is executing the transcendental principles of religion that purify those engaged in household affairs. So, again, we know, like Lord Ramachandra is Maryada Purushottam, Krishna is Lila Purushottam. And in Dwarka, he is also acting, like in Bhagavad-gita, he said, I perform all these different duties in the 3rd chapter. He's pointing out to Arjuna, why? I don't have to do any of these duties. Yad yada charati shreshtas tata devetaro jana. Tata devetaro, what is that? Sad pramanam kurute lokastadanvartante. So, just what every great man does, a common man would follow. So then Krishna explains Arjuna that I don't have to perform any duties. I'm not bound, but I do so because common people will follow. So that's why Krishna performs all these different activities to present an example that people would benefit from, what people have to do. So he's teaching us how is one supposed to act within the household life. This is mostly what is presented here in his Dwarka Lila then. How does one act? What is the setting? What is the relationship? What are the activities that one has to perform? What is it that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is doing? And whatever He is doing, what can be learned from that? Of course, everything. There are so many different descriptions that are given. And it's not just Krishna acting in such a way. There are so many different of His devotees acting in so many different ways in the household life that are described in Srimad Bhagavatam, like again Kardama Muni, or Kapila, Devahuti, giving instructions also certain on it. And there's so many different kinds of examples. Or of course even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was in his household life for whatever short time, Lord Ramachandra definitely, so much more even so. So what are they doing? They're presenting an ideal example. And now the whole point of our spiritual practice is to try to emulate those examples. The more we do, the better benefit and results we gain. So then how was that regulated in the Vedic culture? It is that by training, certain training that is required, one learns and one develops certain qualities and certain principles of life. Because without that training, then how can one perform household activities, household affairs? How can one advance in spiritual life also? It is impossible. It is absolutely impossible. So one needs the training for at least 20 years. One has to be trained for at least 20 years. And then mostly, then one decides to enter into Grihastha ashram. And this is why Grihastha ashram is considered socially higher than Brahmacharya ashram. Why is that? Because before, generally it's understood, most of the Brahmacharis will get married. And then they continue in the Grihastha ashram. So then why is Grihastha ashram higher, considered higher socially? It is because then whatever one has learned, now he's applying in the practice and using in the service of Krishna. For that reason. So one is learning, one is applying, one knows what to do, and one is getting certain results. Whereas in Brahmacharya ashram, one is still learning. It's kind of theoretical. It's not so practical. So for that reason, it's considered higher, socially. So therefore, one has to be fit. Otherwise, whatever one can do, we can just imagine. There's so many examples. You don't just jump. Let's say you don't just jump into ocean and learn swimming. You may try, I do that, but it's not really advisable so much. I mean, sometimes they throw little kids, and they start swimming. There is one system, but it's like, but you should be, very careful. Better to be, teach them a little bit something first, and not really when they're so small, maybe little grown up. And so better to learn. It's not that you just jump into anything and then you start learning. Then you commit a lot of mistakes. A lot of mistakes. It's a hard learning process then. Better to learn it earlier. That's why 20 years, it's not a little time. 20 years, it's a lot of time. How to learn sense control, how to learn being menial, how to learn being humble, how to learn tolerating so many things, how to learn following authority. And you follow other, it's like you have to learn all of that. And then when one is considered, and one graduates, then yes, then one moves and then practically performs all these different activities. Like we're hearing here, that's what Krishna does. Performs all these different household activities. And if we, as I said, emulate these, then we will get very good, or create certain setting and will get very good results. If one learns the psychology, if one knows what to do in a particular situation, if one knows how one should act, if one knows how to be responsible, how to sacrifice, all of those different kinds of qualities, to develop those qualities are required. Because then otherwise it's not possible then to sustain, especially spiritual life in the Grihastha ashram. What means ashram? Ashram means shelter. Ashram means performing or living a spiritual life where two people combine together to perform devotional service. So one has to become qualified One cannot be not qualified and then expect something, especially spiritual, or even to sustain such kind of relationship or to sustain such kind of ashram. It's not possible. So what usually sustains the ashram? What usually, and always actually, what is the principle? It's the dharma that one performs. So one has to know what the dharma is. What are the duties what are the duties of the husband? What are the duties of the wife? And see, if one performs those, maybe some years back here in India, would have some examples of performing such kind of duties and having some exemplary household life going on. Nowadays it's becoming very, very difficult because nobody knows about the duties, nobody performs duties, nobody is interested to sacrifice. The real benefit that one gains from the Grihastha ashram, it's the benefit of performing the duties. That's where the happiness comes from. Happiness doesn't come from some little emotional exchange or this or that. Yeah, there is something, but the real happiness comes by performance of duty. That's where the real happiness comes, not just in this ashram, in every ashram. By the performance of duty, one can experience satisfaction and happiness. So then what is that duty that one has to do? What does husband has to do? He has to provide. He also has to be emotionally ready to, in a certain ways, to respond. He has to do so many things. Yeah. Also what the wife has to do. There are so many, of course, instructions in the Shastras about it. But one has to learn this. That's why it's not easy. It takes 20 years, gradually. And then one is ready. Then one can expect to have some healthy spiritual life also going on. And reaching towards what? Reaching towards what is the ultimate goal? Anybody knows what's the ultimate goal of Grihastha, let's say, Grihastha life? Or what is the ultimate quality that one has to, better to ask this goal? It's of course Krishna consciousness, that's too easy. But what is the quality one has to develop? What do you think? What is the major quality one has to develop in Grihastha ashram? Huh? Or anybody has a hand? Yes. Detachment. Okay. Detachment, renunciation. Yes. Detachment and renunciation. But what is very interesting, the whole Grihastha life, it's surcharged with what? A lot of attachment. A lot of attachment. Attachment, Griha, Kshetra, Apta. What is that verse in Srimad Bhagavatam? So many things keep on manifesting, expanding. So many attachments. And now you're supposed to develop detachment. Very interesting, no? You're accumulating so many attachments, but you're supposed to be detached. But detached for what purpose? Detached to use everything for Krishna's service. That's the point. And that's why you're trained. That's why you're trained to become renounced. That's why it takes 20 years to become at least theoretically aware what one should achieve. At least 20 years it takes to that. This is why we see very wonderful examples how in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's so happy when he meets his Grihastha devotees. They're so qualified. They're so qualified. Srivas Pandit holding kirtans in his house. Everybody's just kirtan. It's all the time kirtan going on. Everybody's attached to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Everybody's attached to kirtan, detached from everything else. How anything will come, it's Krishna's mercy. If he doesn't, we'll jump in Ganga, Haribol, whatever. Just extremely attached. Another example is Shivananda Sena. Shivananda Sena informed Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that his wife is pregnant, is going to have Chaitanya son. He was so happy. He was so happy because they were so Krishna conscious. And then when that son was born, Shivananda Sena brought it to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to Puri. He was sucking on his toe. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave him the name Puridas, referring to Madhavendra Puri. He was so affectionate to the child. And who was that child? Do you know who he became later on? Who was that Puridas? Kavi Karnapur. Kavi Karnapur, very, very exalted devotee of the Lord. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so happy with such Grihastha devotees who were very fixed in Krishna consciousness. But how to be fixed in Krishna consciousness? So that's something that one has to be trained, and one has to be aware. And one has to learn how to sacrifice a lot. And of course, one has to be properly situated. What is the main principle of being properly situated? Is that one understands, okay, what is my nature? What is my conditioned nature? Like we know the story of Gajendra, right? Properly situated, fighting the Maya, in your own natural environment, and becomes easy. If you're not properly situated, then you'll be dragged by the crocodile and Haribol, swallowed by the Maya. That's easy when you're swallowed, but when you're gradually, torn apart, that's much worse. It's more painful. Anyway, both things are horrible. So one should be properly situated. Just like another time Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was down South India, he came across Brahmana. He was so attracted to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Of course, who wouldn't? We can't even imagine. Let's say Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is here, he comes, he's chanting, dancing, and you just leave everything, okay? He wanted to go. I said, I want to follow you, my dear Lord. You wanted to go and travel with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, just go in Harinam Sankirtan, Hare Krishna. But then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed him, no, you stay at home. And of course, at first he was like, oh, I have to stay at home now. Stay at home and preach, and perform your duties. Of course, there is a consideration whether somebody is ready to leave the home. That's another discussion. That's an also teaching and lesson that one can derive from such kind of pastime, of course, from this pastime. One should not prematurely leave. Anyway, we'll leave that aside for now. But the point was that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that this is another sacrifice, that one stays and just keeps on performing his duties, in Krishna consciousness, which means preaching also. Preaching, that's the essence of Grihastha life, of supporting preaching oneself, whatever it is. That's the essence. That is Krishna consciousness, especially at this age. So that's the real sacrifice, but one has to be properly situated. So that's when then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very satisfied. Like there's a very good example of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu being very, very satisfied and saying there's no difference actually between somebody who is fully renounced and somebody who is, in Grihastha ashram. Anybody can guess what the example of somebody who was just really renounced, was associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and somebody who was in Grihastha ashram, being very well situated? It's kind of pretty extreme examples. Anyone can guess? Anybody? Okay, somebody else, a little better, a little more precise. Okay, that's pretty good. Pundarik Vidyanidhi. Who else? Ramananda Rai and Sanatana Goswami. He said there's no difference between two of you. You're both. What is the essence of what is the essence of their advancement and their exalted position? It's the renunciation. Both are renounced. We know in the life of Sanatana Goswami, who was he? He was multimillionaire. He had so much money, prime minister of the king. Had so much money. He gave everything up. Even his servant took 8 gold coins. He said, just give it up, They were about to encounter certain trouble. Somebody knew about it and was about to kill them for it. Sanatana Goswami just leave it, and he gave him one. He said, with this you go back home. Even the servant he renounced. He was so renounced. What he had, one coffin, one quilt, something to cover himself, which he found somewhere, somebody, threw it. That was the position of Sanatana Goswami, fully renounced, absolutely having nothing. And then what was position of Ramananda Rai? Governor of the whole province. He's riding in a palanquin, carried, embedded with emeralds, jewels, gold, wearing silk, eating all the nice items, just like Pundarik Vidyanidhi, like having everything, all the opulences, being fanned, having entourage of thousands of people following, performing different things. That was Ramananda Rai. And we know how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu relished actually his teachings. his teachings, his realizations. Of course, Ramananda Rai said, I'm just a puppet, I'm just dancing the way you wanted me to dance, I'm just, you were pulling the strings really. But he had that realization. And again, who was Ramananda Rai? Who was Ramananda Rai? What was he doing in Jagannath Puri for the pleasure of Lord Jagannath? Huh? Anybody knows? What was he doing? Yes? What? Drama. He was teaching girls how to dance for Lord Jagannath. Anyway, so how nobody could do that. So how renounced one has to be for the pleasure of Krishna. What is the underlying principle of both of them? They're doing everything for the pleasure of Krishna. They're fully renounced, nothing for themselves. And of course, with a mood of humility, rendering this kind of service. So that's the renunciation. So that's something. You want to be perfect in Grihastha ashram? Well, that's what has to be achieved. That's what has to be achieved. Like another good example, it's Lord Shiva. He's so renounced. He has nothing. He's fully renounced. And so one day Parvati said, come on, let's have a house at least, something, It's not she's material energy, she can provide anything. And he, of course, so then Lord Shiva said, okay, we'll have a house. So then to have a house, then you have to call all the brahmanas, you have to perform Griha Pravesh, no? So they did all the yagyas, all the mantras, everything was done, this and that. So many different rituals have been performed and going on. And then, of course, when there is yagya, what has to follow? Dakshina. They're described in Srimad Bhagavatam, brother and sister. You can't do one without the other. Then that yagya, it's incomplete. So then as Dakshina, what did Shiva do? He started giving things from the house, and then ultimately there were so many Brahmins that there was nothing left. So now what to do? So he said, okay, you take the house also. And no more house. And then back under the tree, living under the tree. So he was so renounced. That's one nice story also, but of course, as I said, there are so many wonderful pastimes given in scriptures about ideal household life. And it's ideal household life. Yes, when you make Krishna a center of it, then it can be ideal. But when we make our own, comfort the center of it, then we see, then it's a great struggle, and it's a big problem. And then, as it said before, there used to be how you say this, these big families, right? And nowadays they're nuclear families, meaning just two, and even that doesn't go well together, So that's because everybody becomes so self-centered and selfish and not ready to sacrifice, not ready to perform dharma, not ready to perform the duties. And that's why I said, where then the happiness will come from? It cannot come. It cannot come. It cannot come from the selfishness. It cannot come from, just thinking about, how will I gain some gratification within it. So then so many other problems follow. So so there is that one nice story. We'll just say this. In South India, when Ramanujacharya was traveling, so he came across one couple that was extremely poor couple. And that lady practically, her name was Lakshmi, she didn't even have anything to cover herself almost. And then when they arrived and they heard the Guruji is coming, the Guru is coming, spiritual master is coming, so then how can we render service? Just imagine, of course, it's not like nowadays, sometimes you might get a fortune to more often perform some devotional service, but that time it wasn't so common. So they were so excited also, but then and of course the husband immediately went out begging, trying to gain some items so that they can perform, they can receive the spiritual master, they can cook, they can do something. And when the advance party came, then I think even Ramanujacharya himself, he understood what was the situation, and he threw his chadar, so she used that as a covering. And then what she did, she knew there was one merchant who was very lusty, especially last year after her. And he was always contemplating like this. And when she decided that she went to that merchant and she said, I will fulfill your desire, but please provide me with so many different kind of groceries now. My spiritual master is coming with many disciples. I want to perform that service. And then the merchant was so happy, so satisfied, it's like, wow, great, and immediately supplied everything. So she took, the merchant arranged those goods to be delivered, of course. Then she started cooking. She made such an enormous feast. And Ramanujacharya was so pleased, so pleased. And then she had a discussion with her husband. She said, this is what I did. Who care about this body? This body is such a wretched thing. What is the use of it unless we use it for serving spiritual master? Of course, that has to be purport behind that, given it's not like it's a common thing. But that was the mood. It was so renounced. He was so surrendered. And the husband agreed. He said, yes, that's very good. You've served the spiritual master, satisfied devotees. And then Ramanujacharya, of course, being such a pure soul, understood what is going on. And then he called Lakshmi, and she said that, here is some of my Mahaprasadam. You take this and give it to that merchant. So she did that. She took that Mahaprasadam, and when he went to that merchant, first he told him, please, you receive, this is my spiritual master remnants, so you please honor this. And he did, and once he had it, he had complete transformation of his consciousness, complete transformation of the mind. And he said, wow, you've performed such an amazing service, you're ready to sacrifice so much. It just completely changed, it just became completely purified. And he said, I want to meet your spiritual master. And then he went and he was blessed by Ramanujacharya and completely forgot about everything that he was contemplating earlier. So this is the power of devotional service. Of course, this is one of the extreme examples of the sacrifice performed within the Grihastha ashram. So sacrifice has to be performed. The whole purpose of any ashram is sacrifice. That's the whole point. If one is not knowing how to sacrifice, if one is not ready to sacrifice, but then where can there be any kind of gain? So this is all what is exemplified by Krishna. Krishna also sacrificed so much, sacrificed everything for the pleasure of his devotees. And of course, devotees sacrifice everything for the pleasure of Krishna. And this is what makes, like what is described here, Krishna executing all these different principles of religion for the sake of purifying those in the household life. Because otherwise, household life, we know if there is no such kind of sacrifice, there is no such kind of goal and understanding of purpose of it, then it's described as andakupam. That's the deep, dark well. And if one doesn't have that training, as we said, what is the ultimate purpose of it? It's a renunciation. It's renunciation from material conceptions and attachment towards Krishna and a spiritual practice. So Krishna is exemplifying all this, and this is what Narada had, one of the things that Narada had the opportunity to witness and see, how Krishna is sanctifying, acting to sanctify the ordinary household life, and therefore household life can become transcendental when Krishna becomes the center of it. That's why, who is the master of the house? Who is really the master of the house? When you enter any house, who is the real master of the house? What is the understanding? It's Krishna. It's Krishna. There should be an altar, and the main prime activity also of the every grihastha practically should be deity worship. Of course, unless there is a community and having a temple. Otherwise, every grihastha should have a deity, performing deity worship, being focused on Krishna. So this is what Narada Muni saw, and this is what has been exemplified by Krishna himself as the greatest teacher. Hare Krishna. Any comments or questions? Yes, please.
Hare Krishna. You mentioned Brahmachari comes first, then comes Rasta. Do you have something
there is vanaprastha. Process of renunciation starts.
and then
Sannyas. Yeah.
and
4 orders. Hare Krishna. And okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari.